Right, hello and welcome to another Dauntless development video. Now today we're going to look at creating a very simple calculator using some of the things we've learned previously. So we're going to be using if statements, we're going to be using a console input, we're going to be using these strings with variables embedded. So to start off, what we'll need to do is instead of we'll leave this code here for now, but we'll change it all. So we'll start off by printing out to the user, because this is important, because you always need to ask the user first. Well, kind of inform them what they're supposed to be inputting, because if you just open a window and you say you launched a program, and the name of it wasn't specific, and you just type stuff in, you wouldn't know what to type in. So you obviously need to prompt the user. So we're going to start off by saying, we'll first off, we'll just multiply two numbers together. So, what is the first number you wish to multiply? And then you'll obviously want a question mark there, because it's a question. So, what we can do is, I'll just delete this line, and this is essentially going to be the exact same thing as before. So, we're going to create a string called line. We're going to say console.readLine. So that will then store whatever the user types. So it'll wait at this point for the user to type something. It will then store that as a variable, as a string variable. Then this here, we create an integer called a, and we convert it into, we convert the string into an int, so that it can be stored under this variable by using this int32.parse. Now int32 is just int. It's a specific library within system that has some functions to do with ints. So that's why we're using that. And I've realized I've said library and functions, and we haven't really covered that yet, but we will cover stuff like that later. It's just a collection of things that we can use. So we convert that line variable that we stored here. So we convert it into an int, and we save it here. So next, what we'll do is, instead of what we're doing there, we'll say, I'm just going to copy this line rather than writing it out again. So instead of that, we'll just say, what is the second number you wish to multiply? And what we can do is we can reuse that same variable we had before, because we don't need it anymore. So we'll just say console.readLine. So now we're overriding what was written before, and we're going to now say int b equals int32 parse line. So this will take the first number, so it'll take the first string that's typed, it will store it as line, it will then convert it into an int and save it as a. We'll then ask for another number. It will take that string under the variable line, and then it will convert it into an integer called b. What we can do now is, I'm just going to delete these lines here. We can say, so just, in fact, I'll just retype it out. So what we'll say is console.writeLine. And then we can say, we'll put a little $sign here, and we'll say, we can say a multiplied by b equals, and then we can then put a times b. So what this will do is, in one neat line, it will just say the variable a which we'll get from here, multiplied by b, the variable, which we get from here, from that second line, and then it will output whatever these are together. So when we run this, we should see that all happen. So first of all, we should be asked what number we wish to multiply. So let's keep it simple, and we'll just say 2, and we'll say 3. So as you see, it asks for a number, we inputted something, as soon as we hit enter, it moved to the next line. So we'll type 3, and 2 multiplied by 3 equals 6. So that works exactly as you would expect it to. Now, what we can do is we could, instead of, because right now all we have is multiply, there isn't really an option as to doing other things. And obviously with a calculator, you want to do lots of other things. Now, we're not going to build like a scientific calculator, although we definitely could. So we're not going to be doing like trigonometry or anything like that. But what we will do is get our basic arithmetic. So plus, minus, divide, and multiply. So what we can do is we can start off instead. So one thing just to note, just in case I haven't mentioned this isn't clear, is the code will run from top to bottom. So that's why I'm adding to the top, because I want this to happen first. So I'm going to say console.writeLine. Sorry, not right. I want to say writeLine. And I'm going to say what let's say what calculation do you wish to perform? So what we're going to do is we're going to ask them what kind of calculation they want before we ask for their numbers. And then we can provide some options. So we can say console.writeLine, and we'll say A is, in fact, okay, so we'll say A is addition, console.writeLine. So what we're gonna what I'm doing right here is I'm setting up options so that the user can then type what we're offering as an option, and then we can find out. We can say if they've typed 1, then do that calculation. So I'm doing a lot of console.writelines here. So we've got division. So I'll do a division. And finally, we'll have console.writeLine, and we'll have multiplication. I think I've spelled that right, but it doesn't really matter. So we've got those options, and then what we can basically say is we can store. I'll make a new string variable just because. You can't declare a variable twice, so I would have to remove this string here if it was to declare that again. So I'll just call this option. And we'll say console dot readline. And now what we can do is we can say if well, actually, we'll save that for later, because I have a better way of doing that. So instead of saying here where we say what's the first number we wish to multiply, we can just say what's the first number, and then we say what is the second number. So what we can then say in the bottom is we can say if option equals A, then we'll do something in here. Else if, so this is if and else if, which we covered previously. So what we're saying here is if the option variable, so that's a string that we created earlier. So this is the string that you inputted here. So if this option is equal to A, then it will do addition. We haven't put the logic in, but we will do it. We're saying if it's not A and it is S, then we'll do subtraction. And we'll follow a similar pattern for the rest. So we'll say if option equals D, then we'll be doing division, and then we'll say else if option equals that's it, yeah. We'll do that. So, and one thing I'm going to put here as well is I'm just going to say else, and we'll just say console dot write line option picked was invalid. So that obviously, so if they typed something else, like say they typed P, it doesn't match any of these, so we'll then tell the user that they picked an invalid option when they were trying to do the multiplication or whatever calculation. So this line here we can just take and we can put it straight in the multiplication. And we'll put the same thing in all of these except where we've got, so in option A it'll be addition, so we'll say A plus this equals A plus B, so A plus B equals A plus B. We can then say for the subtraction, we'll say A minus, so minus B equals A minus B. And then we can say divided by instead. And then we'll say A divided by B. So this means that whatever option you pick, it will output the correct calculation essentially. So now that we've done that, we'll hit start and you can see that there is what calculation do you wish to perform, and it gives you the four different options you could choose. So let's choose A. So what's the first number? We'll say 2. What's the second number? 3. And 2 plus 3 equals 5. We'll then try, well, we'll have to run it again. You don't always have to run it again. Like this is something we could at a later date handle so that you can restart the loop. But for now, we just run through it once. So what we'll do is we'll say S for subtraction, and we'll just do 2 and 3 again. And that means -1. So that is S for subtraction. So that works as well. And it's the same pattern with others. One thing to note though is because we've used ints, we won't be able to divide into decimal numbers. It won't work. It will work, but the way that computers convert to ints is they don't round. They just cut off the decimal point. As far as I'm aware, I'll just quickly check that before I stick with that. But yeah, it should be. So if I say 2, 3, yeah, equals 0. It has some trouble dividing numbers. So 2 divided by 3 is actually like two, it's yeah, it's like 2/3 or something like that, isn't it? Yeah, it's 2/3. So it's 0.6 recurring. So all that does, I'll just yeah, all that does, I'll just show this on. Oh, you can't see it. Okay, it doesn't matter. Trust me, it's 2/3. So it's 0.6 recurring. So all it does is it cuts off the decimal place. So it'll just show 0. So it doesn't actually do any proper rounding. So it's never going to be really an accurate answer. So that's one problem with this, which you could solve by using floats instead. But what we're going to do is we're going to just leave that for now. So that means we'll just have to say, instead of having decimal numbers, we'll just have to use numbers that divide into each other. So we'll say 4 and 2, and 4 divided by 2 equals 2. And then we'll try multiplication as well, because why not? So we'll say M, And another thing to note is all these numbers that we pass in also have to be ints. So what's the first number? We'll just say 2 and 3, and 2 times 3 equals 6. So that is how you make basically a very, very simple calculator. And now there are other things we could do to improve this. For example, if you put a capital A, you would also want this to do the same thing. So maybe you've got caps lock on, and I'll just quickly show you how to do that. You can say if option A equals A, or option equals, and then you could say capital A. And it would be the same thing for all the other options as well. And obviously, as I said, you could loop back around. There's a lot more things you could do. And you could use floats instead of ints to make sure that decimal points work. But this is just a simple overview of some if statements and how they work. And kind of just how you would use some of the foundational skills we've covered previously to make some kind of functional program. But that's all for today. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.